Good morning, Animazement. We are back super quickly to start off our next segment, which will be the intro to wig styling. I've already got one wig set up here, but first I'm going to go over the tools of the trade and what I think you should look into getting versus what can wait until you're further along in your wig journey, or if you don't have the expenses for something at the moment, things you can skip over. Now, very first thing, and one of the more basic things to get, is going to be a hair dryer. You don't need anything fancy. This was sitting in my mom's drawer for several years, and it's mine now. So we have that. It will be used for what is called heat setting a wig when you use hairspray on it. Hairspray alone does get fantastic hold, especially if you use brands like Got2b, but having that extra heat source on it really solidifies things, and you will be able to smack the bangs on your wig when you're done and they will not budge. Second thing is a hair straightener. I got this mini one off Amazon because it's travel size, perfect for cons. You don't need anything more fancy than this. As long as it applies even heat, you are solid. The next tool I have up for today is a hair crimper, again also off of Amazon. Both of these are used for similar things, can apply heat either way. The straightener you will see will be used for teasing, to give volume as well as structure to wigs, whereas the crimper will be used mainly for just volume. It will create a softer shape to the hair if you don't need anything as structured. Something that has been popping up in the recent years is the use of a steamer for wigs as well. It's not something I've used personally, but it is something I am looking towards getting. It is another method of heat setting that doesn't necessarily need the hairspray to it, as you will be able to part your hair, move it around, and steam it, and it will set in place once it has cooled. Other tools you will need is a pair of scissors. These are cheap scissors from Walmart. You don't really need anything fancy for these because they are plastic, so you can save the expenses on the good scissors, keep those for your own hair. We also have a comb. There are a few different variations of combs. There are ones meant specifically for teasing the wigs, which if you want to invest in something like that, definitely do. They will help you out. This is a dual-sided comb that has seen lots of love from the different colors. Got a wider side and a smaller side, one for brushing and one for teasing. Got our trusty hairspray from Got2b. They do also make hair gel that is great for sealing the ends of spikes and getting all that going. But personally, for me, for spikes, I like more permanent hold, so I look to glues to really get those spikes solid. This one was recommended to me recently. It is called Uhu. It is a German brand. It is on Amazon, which is fantastic because we love having things be accessible. It is a clear glue, non-toxic. You can dry it with the hair dryer. Tacky glue also works very well. It's just thicker. So far, in my experience of using both glues, they are pretty comparable. It's just a different working method since this one is thinner and the tacky glue takes longer to dry. But with all those laid out, let's get into our first technique. So this is a short, hard front wig that I got from Epic Cosplay Wigs a few years ago. A hard front wig is defined as having no lace, so the wefts go all the way up to the front of the wig. This one is back wefted, which means the wefts are sewn under or in a different direction than just straight down. So it looks like it's being pulled back. It's used to be used for ponytails. There are several different wigs that have this style, especially if you start looking into brands like Arta Wigs and Epic Cosplay Wigs. So we're going to start with teasing and getting some nice spikes on this wig. And my cords are a little tangled. So we're going to start off with a little baby hair straightener and take a small section at the front. This is about the biggest section I will start with. Anything larger than this won't tease properly, so you won't be able to hit all the fibers that you need. So we're going to start by heating up the hair. I go ahead and give it a start with a teasing and heat up in a downward direction, trying to get as close to the scalp of the wig as possible. So once that's nice and evenly heated, we're going to take the smaller side of the comb and start back combing, starting real close to the scalp, getting further up. And this is one of the more time-consuming processes of wigs. What you want to do is see all this lovely, wonderful mess. You want to avoid these larger swoops if possible, but of course you can always go back over and tease again. And more texture will be added once you brush it out as well. So we're just going to work that all the way down, get it as big of a mess as possible. And once again, taking the little straightener, I'm going to go over it one more time. And then we're going to let that cool down fully. But while that is cooling, I am going to start working on another section. I'm going to pin this one back. As teasing, like I had mentioned before, is good for structure and it's good for volume. So if you're doing something that needs a bunch of spikes or really needs to hold its shape, teasing is going to be a better method compared to crimping, just because it won't be as easy for the shapes to fall out. You'll have a little bit more stability, and as we all know, cons get chaotic. So if someone bumps into you, you want to have that added structure to your wig, so things are less likely to get damaged and less likely to need repairs. So again, taking the mini straightener, going over it one more time. The trick to wig styling is going to be heating and cooling and heating and cooling. Since these are plastic fibers, just heat isn't going to be quite enough to get it to be a solid shape. As unfortunately, like our hair, it's plastic, it just makes it malleable. It really needs to cool down to get that perfect texture, and especially if you're doing something like curls, you want to have the patience to let it cool fully. So now that this first piece has cooled completely, I'm going to start brushing it out from the ends. And you can already see that it's starting to have a lot more volume and a lot more texture than when we started. And getting into the very close to the scalp area can be a little difficult. I tend to put my hand underneath it when I'm combing just to make sure my sections are still separated. That is one nice teased section. For comparison, the amount we started with looks something like that. Can obviously see the difference. This is going to be what you want for spiking, for large bangs. If you're doing a large ponytail, like any kind of Akali cosplay, or Kuki Shinobu from Genshin Impact, this is going to be the best way to start for that. And we're going to go ahead and brush out the second section as well. And you don't have to be super gentle when you're brushing out teasing, because if you're rough and you pull it a little bit more, it will create even more texture, which when you're going for something like this is not a bad thing. we have our two big lovely tease sections. I'm going to go a bit further down the hairline and we can turn these into some large bang pieces. I'll also be showing you how to do spikes on this wig, and then after that we'll be transitioning to crimping on a longer wig. So depending on the fibers of the wig that you have, they will take heat differently. Some will have lower heat requirements, some will need more heat, some will be less heat resistant. So if you can, always check the manufacturer. Most of them will have it listed in the description, but if you're searching on Amazon, you'll always want to add something like heat resistant into the search to get those going. Brands like Art Wigs, Epic Cosplay Wigs, and Castle Wigs are known for being heat resistant already. They use higher quality fibers than you might find off of Amazon or AliExpress. And we will get into that a little more later. While there is a quality difference between these higher brands and these well-known brands, Amazon wigs aren't that scary as long as you know what to look for with that search. Something that can also help you if you're having struggles with your teasing is tease your new section into the old one. Gives it a little more hair to hang on to, especially with more slippery fibers that don't always like to take a lot of texture. So now that we have a little bit more mess, we're going to start brushing this out again. And if you think you're ending up with too much fluff, you're doing it right. So you can always add more and take more out. It's very easy to just use a straightener and knock a little bit of the poof out. And like I had said, teasing is going to be one of the more time-consuming things because it is a lot of brushing and then rebrushing and brushing some more. that we've got all of this going, I'm gonna go ahead and start shaping this into some bangs. So the first thing you want to do is, well, most of the time you will have a character reference with you. That you want to section off the bangs and see what pieces you want to put where. So with this one, we're going to do a larger section to the left of the wig and a smaller section to the right. I'm going to try to get as clean as a part in here as possible. And most wigs will also come with what is called a skin top or a skin part. That is going to be this harder plastic front here. Usually it'll be placed further back on the wig, either where bangs will part or where the crown of the wig is. So I'm going to start with the smaller side. I'm going to just pin this section back for now. So for this wig, I'm going to have it swoop down under to the chin length, have a few smaller spikes in it, just to give you an example of what a typical anime bang would look like. So for that, before I start cutting, I'm going to go ahead and knock some of the volume out of these ends with the straightener, just lightly running it over, kind of wanting to make it like a gradient. Start higher up and make multiple passes, getting lower as you go, just so there's not a drastic decrease in volume.
If you were asked if you can do the gel, talk about the gel part?
Yes, we will be getting into the gel bit. Once I get these spikes a little more formed, we will go into that. I will be doing some larger spikes at the top here as well, to give an example of something like a Goku wig, or especially My Hero Academia with Bakugo, Dabi, Hawks. So I'm going to section out a smaller piece up here. And this one I'm going to cut 2 to 3 inches off of. So we're going to take our scissors, and when you're trimming something like bangs, you'll want to be cutting in an upward motion to feather the hair and give it a softer look. If you cut across bluntly like this, it won't be as smooth, and it'll be a lot harder to form the end of the spike well. So I'm just going to roughly cut into the wig in an upward angle. Get most of the length off first. And then we're going to start fine-tuning it using smaller motions just at the ends. And then if I am forming spikes, I will want to take a little bit more volume out of the very middle. So in just a few spots, I'll cut a little further up, but keep the ends the same length. And then you want to brush at the ends, get out any excess hair that might still be stuck in. And if there are any longer hairs that are just poking out that you don't really need, this is when you could do more of a blunt cut, just right below the very tips. Round that off a little bit, and this will be the start of the first spike. So I'm going to start with a hairspray. Pin the rest of the hair back for a moment. Want to hold it a little bit further away from the wig than you would probably want to. Normally when I'm working on wigs, I want to be up close seeing everything. For the hairspray, we're going to start a little further back and apply an even coat. Be sure to get the undersides as well. And then we're going to pull it into the shape that we want. I'm going to add a little bit of curl in here. And this is where the hairdryer comes in. This is how we heat set it. So that is the first spike for this wig. It's got nice volume to it, nice dimension. It's got this nice shape as well. And since it has that internal teasing structure as well as the heat set hairspray, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Do I recommend doing that to your wigs? No, but is it fun and does it make people laugh? Yes. So for the next part, I'm going to do a smaller spike up here that flips outward. So again, sectioning that off, figuring out where I want to cut it. I'm going to say we're cutting 4 to 5 inches off for this one. And again, taking the scissors in a small upward motion, doing a rough cut at first, and then fine-tuning the ends. And another comb, just to get any of those excess hairs out. Then back to the hairspray, over the top, underneath, switch to get the ends, and we're going to smooth that out, hold it into the shape we want, and then Alright, and then for the next bit, we're going to leave it a little bit longer, have it just swooping underneath like this. So I'm going to leave this section as a larger spike, and for the most part, these ends are already feathered nicely. For the most part, these ends are already feathered nicely, thanks to the style that the wig came in already. But I'm going to fan these out so you can see what it would end up looking like. Got the nice little layers in here. It's very thin at the ends. It'll form down into this nice little point once we're done. So we're going to go back to the hairspray one last time for this side. Spray it all down. And for larger spikes, what I like to do is directly spray right at the ends to get that nice and saturated. And pull the ends around, hold it in that little curl at the bottom. And get that all set. So this is the first side. We've got a little face framing layer here, longer ends, and a little swoop off to the side, as animes like to do. And then we're going to go ahead and get into finishing this side before we move on. So this is when the gel and or glue is going to come in handy. Gel is not going to be a permanent hold. It's going to be a temporary thing. If this is a wig that you're going to want to restyle, repurpose, or make sure if it does get damaged, you can easily fix it, gel is going to be the way to go. But for more permanent hold, you will want a glue like this Uhu or tacky glue. Tacky glue is going to be the more accessible one, but this was on Amazon Prime. So you're not going to need a lot, and this is a clear glue. Just going to squeeze a little bit out on my fingers here. And cap that back.
One viewer said, I feel slightly less intimidated by this hairstyle I have to do for my wig, so this is much appreciated all around.
Awesome. I'm glad this is getting appreciated. Yeah. So I'm taking the glue and starting on the underside just to get all of those little hairs sealed up. Be lightly applying that, and then start using 2 fingers to finish off the shape, going against the sides and the top and bottom. And then I'm going to go back to the hair dryer to dry this, get it completely set. Also, I don't know if anyone remembers these, but balloonies. It was like this little straw and you had this colorful like liquid plastic that you would blow into bubbles. That's what this stuff smells like. That was the very first thing I thought of when I opened this. So might trigger some nostalgia. But with that glue being set, you might be able to see that there are a couple hairs at the very end that need a little bit of help. What you'll want to do for that is go against the angle of the hair that you already have formed. I would not cut like that. You want to go with the spike, make sure you're getting the same angle, and just trim as little of that as you can. Then we have this nice, fully formed little spike, perfectly stable at the end. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. The end being permanently sealed will help that spike hold its shape for as long as the wig is intact. The worst you'll need to do for this is do another hairspray and heat and set later on. The hairspray is susceptible to heat, so if you're out at a con in the middle of summer, you might notice that your wig starts to droop a little bit. Hit it with some more hairspray, it'll liven it back up, and make sure you're setting it as well. Summer cons are also where a steamer can come in handy, because that is going to be a longer hold than the hairspray and heat setting. But with that, we're going to come around to the face framing layer. Take a little bit more of our glue. And if you do have tacky glue available to you, it is a thicker glue than this. It is still perfectly workable, and I'm throwing things. It is still perfectly workable. It is just thicker. It takes a little bit more to work into the fibers, but it is not a bad option by any means. So again, starting towards the bottom, we're just going to apply that in a thin layer, work it out towards those ends. And I'm leaving this one a little bit softer because it is closer to the face. The glue does harden it back up. And my cap has been retrieved, thank you. And again with the hairdryer. And tacky glue does work the same way with the hairdryer. You can use it to set the glue permanently. It will just take a little bit longer. So again, we're going to take the scissors and go along the spike and just trim off those little ends to get it looking nice and uniform. Then one last time for this side, and then we'll move on to the giant anime spikes. I am using a little bit more glue for this one because it is a larger spike. I'm going to smooth that on, start working it in. And last time with the hairdryer for this side. And one more nice little trim. The only downside of using glue is that it will get your fingers, and eventually you will have to peel yourself. With it getting stuck to your fingers will start to stick to the wig and will start to pull the fibers out. And that is not ideal. It can mess up the glue and leave a little bit of texture, so just keep an eye on your hands and how they're feeling. All right, so with this side finished out, let's get a final review. Got our 3 spikes here, got nice and smooth tops, smooth undersides, fully finished spikes, clean ends. Now onto the larger spikes. These can be a little bit more challenging because you do need a much stiffer tease for this. We should be good to go ahead and start rolling with it. And brush this out one more time, make sure there's no knots. And if you are doing something like a Dragon Ball Z wig that needs to extend like 1.5 feet off your head, you can add an insert on the inside using foam or wire or like quilting batting. It's just aren't things I have available today. So first thing you want to do is find your section and find the angle of the spike that you want. Probably going to want it to end around here. And before I even cut anything, before I even try to finish this off, I'm going to hairspray around the base of it and heat set that. And since this is a much tougher thing to hold up, I'm being very generous with the hairspray. That's what you want. This can stick straight up on its own, no internal structure, it is just hair. So aside from this front part that didn't quite get sprayed enough, it is all set to go. So I'm going to choose where we want to cut. I'm going to say, I'm going to cut a couple inches off this, and it is going to be a little trickier just because it is already upright. But we're going to bring it out over the floor, and again, using that internal cutting, a little rougher, and then fine tuning it again. With these larger spikes, you will want to cut out the middle a little bit more than the sides and the edges, just so it forms up into a nice peak. Cut that, and I'm going to cut a little bit more out of this, and you will get hair all over your hands and all over the stage for someone else to clean up. And cut a little bit more just to get it nice and feathered. And again, taking the comb, getting those excess hairs out. And just the cut across the top to get any flyaways taken care of. So I'm going to go back to the hairspray and focus on the tops. And again, for the larger spikes, I like to spray directly into the tops of those to make sure the ends get fully sealed before we finish those with the glue. I'm just going to get that gathered up into shape, hold the very top of it, and blow dry it again. big spike. Can again trim the tops because there's a few more long hairs that didn't get caught the first time. Gonna grab the glue once more. And finish off that spike. So I hope this looks less intimidating now to people who may look at wigs like this and wonder where to even begin. Gonna check the time. All right, still got a little bit of time left, so we're gonna transition over to our other wig to talk about crimping and bangs. The bangs will just be like a general cutting intro. For those of you who may not have to do as extreme of a style as this. And something I would also like to point out before I take this wig off, I like to take those clips that are meant for sizing your wig and clip them around the chin just for a little extra stability. Just in case the pins at the top start to shift, it just holds them on a little bit better. But you can see even when you take the wig off, it is still very fluffy, very bouncy, holding its shape, holding that angle, and be perfectly ready for wear. So this wig is another wig I had bought a few years ago because I have been intending on cosplaying Raphtalia from Rising of the Shield Hero. Still have not gotten around to that, but that's just the life of a cosplayer. So we're gonna unbag her, take her out of the net, reveal all that length, which got a little twisted up in the bag apparently. But I'm gonna also take out the paper, and something that you may see once you start getting into heavier wigs or wigs from higher brands is these little wig clips on the inside. These go into the wig cap that you will be wearing to hold everything on securely. And we're just going to place her around, pin her in place. And I have decided we are ignoring the length for now because I'm not sure what happened to that. So this wig is nice in the fact that it is meant for a certain character, meaning all of these sections are already in the wig. This doesn't always happen, but it is nice when it does. If you are looking for character-specific wigs, I do recommend checking out Casso. They have a wide selection and are a wonderful quality. They are more expensive, but again, don't be afraid of Amazon wigs. They are not as bad as people make them out to be. Just make sure you are checking reviews, checking if they are heat safe, and making sure that what you are buying is going to meet your expectations. All right, so now we're gonna get to the crimper. This one is 7 teeth along the inside. It is one of the smaller sizes of plates available. So normally, if you're crimping your own hair, you're emanating the early 2000s and want that style, so you would be holding it straight across. That is going to give a very noticeable texture. If you don't mind that, and if you like that style for your wigs, absolutely go for it. It's not my personal favorite, so I prefer to hold it at an angle. I've heard some people say to hold it straight up. I'm not sure how that works, so I opt for a 45-degree angle. So we're going to start with this upper section here. Give it a little bit more volume. It doesn't need a lot of structure, I just want it to have a little bit more body to it. So I'm going to take a smaller section and starting up at the top, going to press it down for a few seconds and keep moving. Now we've got our crimped section there, and while it is still hot, I'm going to brush it out. Brushing it out will take a little bit of the texture out and make those lines a little less noticeable. With a crimped wig, there will always be a little bit of wave to the hair, and that's not a bad thing, it's just there. There is a wig I'm currently working on that is 5 feet in length, completely crimped, still very pretty. So I've got our one section there, going to quickly go through it a little bit more on this. And again, just pinning it out of the way. I am going to transition to some bigger sections, which bigger sections width-wise is fine. You just don't want them to end up too thick. And crimping wigs is another one of those things that has become popular in the past few years along with steaming wigs. They are great in combination. If you want to learn more about that, there are plenty of tutorials available. Art of Wigs does a lot of tutorials on YouTube, as well as shares a lot of tutorials on their Instagram and social media. Not only are they a great brand for wigs, they're a great brand for learning. And we've got the last little piece for this section. Unpin that, let these down, and give it all a good thorough brushing. Find the same section on this side. Hopefully you can already see the difference that that little bit of crimping made. This does have more volume to it, it has more body. On shorter pieces, like in the bangs, it is going to be more noticeable because there isn't as much weight pulling on those crimps. So to finish this section off, I'm completely pulling it out, making sure there's no stray hairs lumped in. Just got a few. I'm going to just slide this over to the front where it is supposed to sit, as her hair curls under a little bit at the chin. One more brush to get out any noticeable sections. Pull it over, and I am going to use the flat iron to curl the ends in. Going to heat up those ends and roll that under. And like I had said before, you want to make sure everything cools down completely before you let go of it, otherwise it's not going to hold that shape. Which, if you're doing a lot of this, it can get boring. So you can see how that shape held pretty nicely on the ends. Again, just wrapping that around, and we're going to do our heat setting on this as well. And even though it may not look like you need it for a section that lays against the rest of the hair, you are going to hit that bottom side as well. Again, wrapping it around to the front, and I am going to put my hand under just to hold away from the rest of the wig. Make sure it has that distinct section. Got that section all finished. This isn't one that I'm going to finish with hairspray or the gel just because I want the softer ends for it. It's not something that needs that harsh edge. Got that wrapped around there. Then I'm going to do a quick bang cutting and then we'll be done for this segment. I hope so far you guys have been learning a lot and have at least picked up on new techniques or tools that you may not have thought of before. Because there is a lot to wig styling and there's always a new technique that pops up every few years. But real quick, I'm just going to crimp the top of the bangs, get some texture in there. My crimper turned off on its own. My crimper died on its own. All right, back to bang cutting. So this little piece that got caught in the crimper, I'm just going to take the flat iron, go over that, smooth it out, make sure that's all good to go. With your wigs, when you are cutting the bangs, you'll want to make sure that the ear tabs are aligned. In the wig cap, there's these two little sections on the side that are mostly this mesh that meets the bottom edge. Want to make sure those are even, so when you're cutting your bangs, you're not cutting them at an angle accidentally, because that is not fun to fix. Brush them out. They look pretty good already, but they are going to end up being a little long. Most wig companies do add more length to the bangs just so they fit more face shapes and sizes. I'm going to do a rough cut across the bottom just to even it out to begin with. So for these, probably going to take out about 1.5 inches, so I'm going to start towards the middle and cut in that line. Just start thinning it out, and for these I am going to taper them off into a rounded shape. So I'm going to hold the hair away from the face of the mannequin and roughly cut that in. So got it very choppy for now just to get the length in about the right spot. So I'm going to start fine tuning it. I'm going to pull out part of the section, just pull it over to me, and in very small motions, just go over these little points that had been created by that rough cut just to fine tune everything. And just to feather things a little bit more, I'm going to go up about 1/2 inch completely vertically just to make the ends a little thinner. And again, brushing that out, seeing if there are any pieces that were missed. It looks like there were a few, so I'm going to grab the comb, pull the bangs out from the wig and very carefully go across the bottom to get any of those remaining hairs that were left. I'm going to quickly finish up the left side of the bangs and then we can show you the final look on that. And cutting is always something you want to take your time with, even if you are getting bored. You can always cut more hair away. You can't add it back on once you realize you've cut it too short. All right, so we've got a basic blunt cut, straight across bang. There is a little bit of wavering across the top of that. So to fix that, I'm just going to take the flat iron again, gather them up, go across the top and wait for that to cool down. I am also going to use my fingers to give them a little bit of curl inwards, just to give a little bit more volume because wigs can look flat. So while that is cooling down, those are all the techniques that I did want to go over today. Got a little bit of crimping, some cutting, we went through spiking and teasing and when it's appropriate to use that. Went over our tools, glues. I'm going to cut a few more of those longer hairs away and call it a day on those. So I've got our two finished techniques here. Got our super anime spiky wig with both bangs and larger spikes. And we've got our nice soft bangs, our crimped side piece with a little bit of curl at the end. Crimping is also good for long wigs like this if you need to prevent tangling a little bit. The crimp texture isn't as easy to tangle. It also gives more volume and body to the wig that can otherwise just look flat against your body and your head. Yeah. Got our techniques all set up, got our wigs. Thank you all so much for joining me today through this intro to wig styling. I hope it was helpful for everyone. If you have any more questions, you can always pop them into the Twitch chat. I'll be able to answer those at some point today. We'll try to make note of them. Or you can also put those up on Instagram later. But hopefully this helps you throughout the weekend and gives you a good look into where to start for your own wings. All right, thank you all so much. Bye.